it's a passage completion question, right? So let's quickly understand what the query is first. Ma'am, I'm confused between option B and C. Okay, answer is given B. Okay, let's see. So I have, let's quickly dissect this question before we get confused, because just looking at the enormity of this question, you might get into panic mode. So European Convention, so this is one sentence, right? Then I have 27 states, blah, blah, blah. Where does it end? Okay, this is the second sentence. And then the third sentence is what we need to figure out from the given options. How many options are there? There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 options are there. Okay, 5 options are there. And then you have a closing sentence. Fourth sentence, the European Court of Human Rights is blah, blah, blah. Okay, member states, it ends here. Okay, so this is the fourth sentence. So 4 sentences, we need to figure out what's the third sentence, right? Now, let's quickly, now for this passage completion, which we've covered in, it's available, these sort of questions in our video library under comprehension, right? For questions like this, it's pretty much the same strategy that we'll apply for jumble sentence. It's the same strategy, nothing different, right? So, which means I need to, look for repeat words. I need to figure out if there are any clue words, or pick that and ask questions. Then you'll be able to identify the flow or what's the sequence. Okay. Now let's quickly, can we quickly do the same procedure? Let's identify repeat words and phrases. Okay. So I have European Convention. I have Council of Europe. I'm just quickly identifying all the repeat words and phrases. International, human rights, European Court of Human Rights. Okay, yeah, so these are pretty much the repeat words in the context, right? Now let's focus on the topic sentence. The topic sentence is, European Convention on Human Rights is the oldest and strongest of these regional human rights systems, with standards for Europe that sometimes surpass those of international human rights conventions. Now, without going into figuring out the meaning, if I were to answer this sort of a question, this will be my first bet. I'll quickly identify repeat words and phrases, try and see what the topic sentence is conveying as a meaning, right? So the entire thing is revolving around this European Convention on Human Rights. And I have some repeat words, which is, I've already identified that. So the first context is basically saying this particular regional human rights system sometimes exceeds the international human rights. That's the meaning the first context gives. The second sentence says, the 27 states belonging to the European Union are also members of the Council of Europe and thus legally obliged to recognize and respect human rights through their national legislation, resorting to international mechanisms as a kind of last resort when domestic remedies prove ineffective. So the second sentence is saying, you know what, in case whatever they have as a strategic plan within their country doesn't work, then they will fall back or rely on international mechanisms as a last resort. Then the third one, so if you look at it quickly to make sense, the second sentence introduces the Council of Europe. The third sentence has to introduce this European Court of Human Rights, right? Because that's the next following context. The explanation given is the European Court of Human Rights is a permanent judicial body. So somebody has to introduce this, no? So look for the context that introduces that European Court of Human Rights. Which context is that? We can rule out everything else, right? A starts with, it complements the human rights guarantees that exist at national level. B says, within the Council of Europe, the European Convention is implemented by the Committee of Ministers and the European Court of Human Rights, located in Strasbourg, France. Then C says, while the European Convention and the European Court on Human Rights. So C, right, is talking about both these things, which is European Convention, which is already introduced in topic sentence. We have some information about that, and the European Court on Human Rights, where the information has to be given earlier. So the C, if you ask me, is somewhere a little later, maybe even after the fourth sentence, right? Adding or combining these two. So it has to be B, because B is the sentence that is introducing the European Court of Human Rights. See, the second sentence is introduced Council of Europe, right? First sentence is already given as information about European Convention on Human Rights. So within the Council of Europe, the European Convention is implemented by what? Committee of Ministers and the European Court of Human Rights. So introduced here in B. Then the next sentence is explaining what European Court of Human Rights is all about. It is a permanent judicial body that hears and decides on individual complaints concerning violations of the European Convention by anyone residing in the territory of the member states. So the answer has to be B, which has introduced the next repeat word, European Court of Human Rights. Okay, so that's how you go about. So it's the same strategy, right? If you notice, we've just identified repeat words and phrases, looked at what is the sequence in terms of introduction, explanation, introduction of the keyword and expansion of that. So in fact, C makes sense where it can come probably after the fourth sentence, right? Or I don't know the sequence after that, but to answer this question, the answer is B. So identify the sentence that introduces the keyword, the following, the repeat word or phrase. We have to have some sort of introduction and we have to have some sort of a background knowledge on both this. European Convention has been described in topic sentence. Then the European Court of Human Rights also has to be described. C is expanding on these two. It's saying while the European Convention and the European Court on Human Rights remain key in the Council of Europe's work. So this remain key, remember, how do we know it is key? Because the earlier sentences have already explained what they do and what it is about. So that's the reason why they remain key in the Council of Europe's work on human rights. Then it goes on to say what else does it do? The organization has developed several blah 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 blah. Are you following? So pay attention to a couple of words which will give you logical sense, logical sequence. Right? How do we know that they are remaining key? Because the earlier sentences have given us enough proof of that, which is C and D. So moving on.